Hey y'all, it's Josh. I know it's been a while since I've made a video regarding the Silmarillion. The reason why I haven't made one in a while is because I've been busy with college, and also I've been a little under the weather a bit, so I do apologize for that. But to make it up to you guys, I'm going to be recording two videos tonight. Um, the first two chapters of the Quenta Silmarillion, so let's just get right into it. Before I forget, um, there's a few things. First things first, you may have noticed the Keepa. Hanukkah is going to be starting here in about a couple. Well, it's starting on Sundays, so yeah. To everybody who's celebrating Hanukkah, I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah. Secondly, um, I have been noticing um, that I've been not feeling as motivated to do a lot of stuff. So if y'all could like leave just a nice little warm friendly comment in the comment section of this video, that would be great. Because I really do need some motivation. Because like I said, I've not been feeling all that motivated. But anyways, let's begin. Quenta Silmarillion. The History of the Silmarils. Chapter 1. Of the Beginning of Days. It is told among the wise that the first war began before Arda was full shaped, and ere yet there was anything that grew or walked upon earth. And for long Melkor had the upper hand. But in the midst of the war a spirit of great strength and hardihood came to the aid of the Valar, hearing in the far heaven that there is a battle in the little kingdom. And Arda was filled with the sound of his laughter. So came Tulkas the Strong, whose anger passed like a mighty wind, scattering cloud and darkness before it. And Melkor fled before his wrath and his laughter, and forsook Arda. And there was peace for a long age. And Tulkas remained and became one of the Valar of the kingdom of Arda. But Melkor brooded in the outer darkness, and his hate was given to Tulkas forever after. Now, like I said before in previous videos in this series, I may stop it every once in a while to kind of like recap what was previously read. So, in this beginning part, we get a little description about the first war between Melkor, who will later become Morgoth, but that'll be explained later. We have Melkor versus all of the Valar. Now, if you remember from a previous chapter, Melkor was literally described as being the strongest of the Valar. But, as we'll read throughout the Silmarillion, he uses his power to corrupt and twist things into a really messed up nature. And he even somewhat creates things that are in mockery, but we'll get to that later. So it gets to a point where this strong spirit named Tulkas, who I guess like if you wanted to go with a Greco-Roman idea for him, think of like Heracles or Hercules if you're going with the Roman pronunciation. Or if you're going with a Judeo-Christian idea, think of him a like a demigod version of Samson, even though Samson was never a demigod. Essentially someone like that. Anyways, continuing on. In that time, the Valar brought order to the seas and the land, let me restart. In that time, the Valar brought order to the seas and the lands and the mountains, and Yavanna planted at last the seeds that she had long devised. And since then, when the fires were subdued or buried beneath the primeval hills, there was need of light. Aule, at the prayer of Yavanna, wrought two mighty lamps, two, for the lighting of the Middle Earth, which he had built amid the encircling seas. Then Varda filled the lamps, and Manwë hallowed them, and the Valar set them upon high pillars, more lofty far than are any mountains of the later days. One lamp they raised near the north of Middle Earth, and it was named Illuin, and the other was raised in the south, and it was named Ormal. And the light of the lamps of the Valar flowed out over the earth, so that all was lit with. Let me read that. And the light of the lamps of the Valar flowed out over the earth, so that all was lit as it were in a changeless day. Okay, so basically, after Tulkas came and basically scared the crap out of Morgoth to the point, well, Melkor for now, until he gets, like, the Silmarils and, buggers off. Tulkas basically comes in like the Kool-Aid Man, like, kicks down the door and is like, oh yeah! And Melkor's like, oh gosh, I gotta go. Like, now. Yeah. And skedaddles. And when that happens, the Valar's like, okay, cool, now we can calm everything down and make everything perfect. They do. They create lamps. One is in the north, one is in the south. And yeah, it's pretty freaking nice. Anyways, then the seeds of Yavanna had sown began. Yeah, let me restart. Then the seeds of Yavanna had sown began. Again, sorry. Reading this a little tipsy, so I do apologize. Then the seeds that Yavanna had sown began swiftly to sprout and to burgeon, and there arose a multitude of growing things, great and small, mosses and grasses and great ferns, and trees whose tops were crowned with clouds, as they were living mountains, but whose feet were wrapped in a green twilight. And beasts came forth and dwelt in the grassy plains, or in the rivers and the lakes, or walked in the shadows of the woods. And yet no flower had bloomed. Yeah. As yet no flower had bloomed, nor any bird had sung, for these things waited still their time in the bosom of Yavanna. But wealth there was of her imagining, and nowhere more rich than in the midmost parts of the earth, where the light of both of the lamps met and blended. And there upon the Isle of Almarin, in the great lake, was the first dwelling of the Valar, when all things were young, and new made green was yet a marvel in the eyes of the makers, and they were long content. So basically, um, with regard to the Valor's original living place, once they got everything under control and not screwed up because of Melkor, they created the lamps. There's an island in the middle of a lake, and they was like, you know what, we'll settle here because this place is cool, and it's Almarin, so it's basically like the Garden of Eden, if you want to put it that way, I guess, or at least a proto Garden of Eden. But yeah, anyways. Now it came to pass that while the Valar rested from their labors and watched the growth and unfolding of the things that they had devised and began, Manwë ordered a great feast, and the Valar and all their host came at his bidding. But Aule and Tulkas were weary, for the craft of Aule and the strength of Tulkas had been at the service of all without ceasing in the days of their labor. And Melkor knew of all that was done, for even then he had secret friends and spies among the Maiar. Again, to recap, those are like the angels. Some of them like lesser angels, but continuing on. Whom he had converted to his cause, and far off in the darkness he was filled with hatred, being jealous of the work of his peers, whom he desired to make subject to himself. Therefore he gathered to himself spirits out of the halls of Ea, that he had perverted to his service, and he deemed himself strong. And seeing now his time, he drew near again to Arda, and looked down upon it, and the beauty of the earth and its spring filled him with filled him the more with hate. So, like I said in a previous video, if you're of the Judeo-Christian fold, think of Melkor like the idea of the devil, or at least a demonic figure who wants to destroy all life because, you know, he's evil. Um, but if you're more of a polytheistic um, religious figure, think of Melkor like either one of or like the evil entity within your respective religious communities, because I do not want to like force one interpretation of the idea of who Melkor is that is blatantly geared towards one group instead of like, you know, allowing people to interpret him how they would see him within the context of their religions. Anyways, let me see. Okay. Now, therefore, the Valar had gathered upon Almarin, fearing no evil, and because of the light of Illuin, they did not perceive the shadow in the north that was cast from afar by Melkor, for he was grown dark as the night of the void. And it is sung that in that feast of the spring of Arda, Arda being the actual world, I made a mistake in a previous video. Arda is the physical world. Ea is the universe surrounding the physical world. Continuing on. And it is said that in that feast of the spring of Arda, Tulkas espoused Nessa, the sister of Orome, and she danced before the Valar upon the green grass of Elmarin. Then Tulkas slept, being weary and content, and Melkor deemed that his hour had come. And he passed therefore over the walls of night with his host, and came to Middle-earth, far in the north, and the Valar were not aware of him. Now Melkor began the delving and building of a vast fortress deep under earth, beneath dark mountains, where the beams of Illuin were cold and dim. That stronghold was named Utumno. Now, a little bit of a linguistic lesson here for those of you who may not understand what Utumno is. Tolkien, when he was alive and writing the Silmarillion, the Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit, and his earlier works related to the Legendarium, he was raised Catholic, so Utumno is like the Judeo-Christian concept of hell, and as you'll find out later in the reading, Utumno, not a very good place. In fact, you don't want to go there. It's horrible. Like, yeah, really horrible. Anyways, let me see. And though the Valar knew not of it as yet, nonetheless the evil of Melkor and the blight of his hatred flowed out thence, and the spring of Arda was marred. Green things fell sick and rotted, and rivers were choked with weeds and slime, and fens were made and rank and poisonous, and the breeding place of flies, and forests grew dark and perilous, the haunts of fears. And beasts became monsters of horn and ivory, and dyed the earth with blood. Then the Valar knew, indeed, that Melkor was at work again, and they sought for his hiding place. But Melkor, trusting in the strength of Utumno and the might of his servants, came forth suddenly to war, and struck the first blow ere the Valar were prepared. And he assailed the lights of Illuin and Ormal, and cast down their pillars and broke their lamps. In the overthrow of the mighty pillars, lands were broken, and seas arose in tumult. And when the lamps were spilled, destroying flame was poured out over the earth, and the shape of Arda and the symmetry of its waters and its lands were marred in that time, so that the first designs of the Valar were never after restored. Okay, so here we have Melkor, pardon my French here, being an asshole. He's like, you know what? I see these lights. I don't really like them. I'm going to make a fortress. I'm going to corrupt some of the Maiar, bring them to my side, make my side more stronger, and I'm going to cause a little bit of chaos here so that all green things die, all waters become breeding places for insects, flies, and also poisonous. Also, I'm going to cause creatures to turn on each other and just kill each other, and the Valar is like, oh shit, Melkor's back. We gotta find this bastard. So they start looking around, and Melkor's like, fuck you guys, I'm hiding in the shadows. Also, bam! Illuin, bam! Ormal, done. And Cataclysm. So yeah, that happened. Anyways, continuing on. In the conclusion and the darkness, Melkor escaped, though fear fell upon him, For above the roaring of the seas he heard the voice of Manwë as a mighty wind, and the earth trembled beneath the feet of Tulkas. But he came to Antumno ere Tulkas could overtake him, and there he lay hid. The Valar could not at that time overcome him, for the greater part of their strength was needed to restrain the tumults of the earth, and to save from ruin all that could be saved of their labor. And afterwards they feared to rend the earth again, until they knew where the children of Ilúvatar were dwelling, who were yet to come in a time that was hidden from the Valar. So, because of Melkor's dickishness, the Valar was like, okay, we gotta, hold the world together. We gotta save as much of our work that we can. And we also need to, at a later time, yeah, we need to take care of Melkor. But at the same time, now's not the time. We gotta protect the world. Besides, we don't know where the children are gonna be spawning out of, or where they're gonna be coming from. So let's keep the Earth from collapsing in on itself. So yeah, that happened. Thus ended the Spring of Arda. The dwelling of the Valar upon Almarin was utterly destroyed, and they had no abiding place upon the face of the earth. Therefore they departed from Middle-earth and went to the land of Aman, the westernmost of all lands upon the borders of the world. For its west shores looked upon the outer sea that is called by the elves Achaia, encircling the kingdom of Arda. How wide is that sea none know but the Valar, and beyond it are the walls of nights. But the eastern shores of Aman were the uttermost end of Beledgyr, the great sea of the west. And since Melkor was returned to Middle-earth, and they could not yet overcome him, the Valar fortified their dwelling, and upon the shores of the sea they raised the Pelori, the mountains of Aman, highest upon earth, and above all the mountains of the Pelori was that height upon whose summits Manwë set his throne. Taniquetil, the elves name that holy mountain, and Oyolosse, the everlasting whiteness, and Elerina, crowned with stars, and many other names beside. But the Sindar spoke of it in their later tongue as Aman Uilos. From their halls upon Taniquetil, Manwë and Varda could look out across the earth, even into the furthest east. Behind the walls of the Pelori, the Valar established their domain in that region, which is called Valinor. And there were their houses, their gardens, and their towers. In that guarded land, the Valar gathered great store of light and all the fairest things that were saved from the ruin, and many others yet fairer they made anew, and Valinor became more beautiful even than Middle-earth and the Spring of Arda. And it was blessed, for the deathless dwelt there, and there naught faded nor withered, neither was there any stain upon flower or leaf in that land, nor any corruption or sickness in anything that lived, for the very stones and waters were hallowed. So basically, when the Valar was able to save as much as they could, they was like, okay, we can't stay here in Middle-earth because we don't want to be subject to Melkor's attacks again. So there's a land on the sea, across the sea. Let's go to there, name it Valinor, and raise some mountains to defend ourselves. So Yeah. We also get a couple names here, like Achaia, which is the encircling sea that surrounds Middle Earth. Arda, sorry. Then we also have the Walls of Night. Now, the Walls of Night, think of it like a sort of boundary. Like, we have the physical plane, then we have the outer plane where the supernatural is, essentially. Then we get the name Belegair, which is like the sea that separates Valinor from Middle Earth. The Pelori, which are the mountain range of Valinor. And then we also get a bunch of names for Taniquetil, which is the highest mountain in all of Middle Earth, including Valinor. And if you actually take a look at the cover of the Silmarillion, if you have this artwork for the Silmarillion, you will notice that this mountain right here is Taniquetil, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah. Anyways, oh shit. Going back to here. Okay, I know it's in here somewhere. Give me a minute. I lost my page. It's here somewhere. Okay. Um and won't there sorry. Okay. And when Valinor was full wrought and the mansions of the Valar were bleh. Let me retry that again. And when Valinor was full wrought and the mansions of the Valar were established, in the midst of the plain beyond the mountains they built a city, Valmar of many bells. Before its western gate there was a green mound, Ezelohar, that is named also Corolaire, and Yavanna hallowed it. And she sat there long upon the green grass and sang a song of power, in which was set all her thought of things that grow in the earth. But Nienna, remember she's also one of the Valar, thought in silence and watered the mold with tears. In that time the Valar were gathered together to hear the song of Yavanna, and they sat silent upon their thrones of council in the Mahanaxar. Sorry, I cannot pronounce certain words. Anyways, the Ring of Doom near the golden gates of Valmar, and Yavanna Kementari sang before them, and they watched. And as they watched upon the mound, there came forth two slender shoots, and silence was over all the world. In that hour. Nor was there any other sound save the chanting of Yavanna. Under her song, the saplings grew and became fair and tall, and came to flower, and thus there awoke in the world the two trees of Valinor. Of all things which Yavanna made, they have most renown, and about their fates all the tales of the elder days are woven. So, in this little chunk here that I just got reading. The Valar come to Valinor. They make their city, they build it, and then they are like, okay, we have to have a place where we can meet and discuss Valar type business. So they make the Ring of Doom. Yavanna's like, you know what? We need to have some sort of light here too because we can't be stuck here in darkness. So I'm gonna start chanting, and Niana's like, okay, while you're doing that, I'm just gonna cry because I have pity for the world and for everything that's got fucked up by Melkor. And as that happens, we get the two trees of Valinor, which we will be reading here shortly. In fact, let's continue. The one had leaves of dark green that beneath were as shining silver, and from each of his countless flowers a dew of silver light was ever falling, and the earth beneath was dappled with the shadow of his fluttering leaves. The other bore leaves of a young green, like a new opened beech. Their edges were of glittering gold. Flowers swung from her branches in clusters of yellow flame, formed each from a blossom of that tree that came forth warmth and a great light. Telperion, the one was named in Valinor, and Silpion, and oh gosh, Ninqualote, and many other names. But Laurelin, the other was, and Malinalda, and Kulurian, and many other names in song beside. In 7 hours the glory of each tree waxed to full and waned again to naught, and each awoke once more to life an hour before the other ceased to shine. Thus in Valinor, twice every day, there came a gentle hour of softer light when both trees were faint and their gold and silver beams were mingled. Telperion was the elder of the trees, and came first to full stature and to bloom. And that first hour in which he shone, the white glimmer of a silver dawn, the Valar reckoned not into the tale of hours, but named it the opening hour, and counted from it the ages of their reign in Valinor. Therefore, at the 6th hour of the first day, and of all the joyful days thereafter, until the darkening of Valinor, Telperion ceased his time of flower, and at the 12th hour, Laurelin her blossoming, and each day of the Valar in Aman contained 12 hours, and ended with the second mingling of the lights, in which Laurelin was waning, but Telperion was waxing. But the light that was spilled from the trees endured long, ere it was taken up into the airs or sank down into the earth. And the dews of Telperion and the rain that fell from Laurelin Varda hoarded in great vats, like shining lakes, that were to all the land of the Valar as wells of water and of light. Thus began. Let me retry that. Thus began the days of bliss, the days of the bliss of Valinor, and thus began also the count of time. So basically, it's kind of weird, but stay with me for a minute. When the trees were created, one was made male, the other was made female. Telperion is the male, Laurelin is the female. it kind of goes hand in hand with like Norse mythology, where like the moon is. I think it's Norse mythology. Correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I think it's Norse mythology that has a male moon and a female sun. I could be wrong. Please correct me if I am wrong. But anyways, but as the ages drew on to the hour appointed by Iluvatar for the coming of the firstborn, Middle Earth lay in a twilight beneath the stars that Varda had wrought in the yeah. Sorry. In the ages forgotten of her labors in Ea, and in the darkness Melkor dwelt, and still often walked abroad in many shapes of power and fear, and he wielded cold and fire from the tops of the mountains to the deep furnaces that are beneath them. And whatsoever was cruel or violent or deadly in those days is laid to his charge. From the beauty and the bliss yeah. Hold on. Let me retry that as soon as I get comfy again, because I cannot seem to get comfy. Anyways, from the beauty and bliss of Valinor, the Valar came seldom over the mountains to Middle-earth, but gave to the land beyond the Pelori their care and their love. And in the midst of the blessed realm were the mansions of Aule, and there he labored long, for in the making of all things that in that land he had a chief part. Sorry. Uh, and he wrought there many beautiful and shapely works both openly and in secret. Of him came the lore of and knowledge of the earth and of all things that it contains, whether the lore of these that make not but seek only for the understanding of what is, or the lore of all craftsmen, the weaver, the shaper of wood, and the worker in metals, and the tiller and the husbandman also, though these last and all that deal with things that grow and bear fruit must look also to the spouse of Aule, Yavanna Kementari. Aule it is who is named the friend of the Noldor. Keep that name in mind. Noldor is going to be really important in this book. Okay? Good. Let's continue on. For of him they learned much in their day and after days, and they are the most skilled of the elves. Keep that fact in mind. And in their own fashion, according to the gifts which Iluvatar gave to them, they added much to his teachings, delighting in tongues and in scripts and in the figures of embroidery, of drawing and of carving. The Noldor also it was who first achieved the making of gems, and the fairest of all gems were the Silmarillions, and they were lost. Keep that fact in mind. But Manwë Sulimo, highest and holiest of the Valar, sat upon the borders of Aman, forsaking not in his thoughts the outer lands. For his throne was set in majesty upon the pinnacle of Taniquetil, the highest of the mountains of the world, as I stated before, standing upon the margin of the sea. Spirits in the shape of hawks and eagles flew ever to and from his halls, and their eyes could see. Hold on. Sorry, I am feeling tired, but I want to get these two videos made. Anyways, and their eyes could see to the depths of the sea and pierce the hidden caverns beneath the world. Thus they brought word to him of well nigh all that passed in Arda, yet some things were hidden from, even from the eyes of Manwë and the servants of Manwë, for where Melkor sat in his dark thought, impenetrable shadows lay. Manwë has no thought of his own honor, and is not jealous of his power, but rules all in peace. But rules all to peace. The Vanyar, another name, keep that in mind. They won't play a major role until a certain point, but keep that in mind. Uh, I think the other Elven clan was named in here, if I'm not mistaken. Shoot. Oh yeah, the Sindar. The Sindar is the other important Elven clan that you'll want to keep an eye on in this book. Okay. The Vanyar he loved best of all the elves, and of him they received song and poetry. For poetry is the delight of Manwë, and the song of words is his music. His raiment is blue, and blue is the fire of his eyes, and his scepter is of sapphire, which the Noldor wrought for him. And he was appointed to be the vice-regent of Iluvatar, king of the world of Valar and elves and men, and the chief defense against the evil of Melkor. With Manwë dwelt Varda, the most beautiful, she who in the Sindarin tongue, or as some people call it Sindarin, is named Elbereth, queen of the Valar, maker of the stars, and with them were the great host of spirits in blessedness. So here we get a little description of who the leader of the Valar is, who his wife is, and some of like their traits. So that's cool. Continuing on. But Ulmo was alone, and he abode not in Valinor, nor ever came thither unless there were great need of a great council. He dwelt from the beginning of Arda in the outer ocean, and still he dwells there. Thence he governs the flowing of all waters, and the ebbing, and the courses of all rivers, and the replenishment of springs, the distilling of all dews and rain in every land beneath the sky. In the deep places he gives thought to music, great and terrible, and the echo of that music runs through all the veins of the world in sorrow and in joy. For if joyful is the fountain that rises in the sun, its springs are in the wells of sorrow, unfathomed at the foundations of the earth. The Teleri, another name for the Sindar, learned much of Ulmo, and for this reason their music has both sadness and enchantment. Selmar came with him to Arda, he who made the horns of Ulmo, that none may ever forget who once has heard them. And Ose and Uinen, other important characters, keep that in mind. Also, to whom he gave the government of the waves and the movements of the inner seas, and many other spirits besides. And thus it was, by the power of Ulmo, that even under the darkness of Melkor, life coursed still through the many secret lodes, and the earth did not die. And to all who were lost in that darkness or wandered far from the light of the Valar, the ear of Ulmo was ever open, nor has he ever forsaken Middle Earth. And whatsoever may since be that may have befallen of ruin or of change, he has not ceased to take thought of it for it, and will not until the end of days. Now, that section right there is one of the reasons why I love Ulmo as a character within the Silmarillion, because he doesn't follow. Well, he follows the will of Eru, yes, but he doesn't forsake Arda. Like, he doesn't forsake Middle Earth for the sake of going to Valinor. He's like, nope, I've built my kingdom in the sea. I will stay right the fuck where I'm at right now, and I will only come to Valinor if it's very important. Otherwise, leave me be. I'm keeping an eye on Middle Earth, and if anything happens with Melkor, I'm gonna let y'all know with my if anything happens with Melkor in Middle Earth, I will send one of my representatives, or even come myself, to Valinor to let y'all know, hey, we need to get everybody together. Melkor's at it again, and we need to, kick his ass. So, yeah. Otherwise, he's just like, let me just chill in the ocean, bruh. And in that time of dark, Yavanna also was unwilling utterly to forsake the Utterlands. For all things that grow are dear to her, and she mourned for the works that she had begun in Middle-earth, but Melkor had marred. Therefore, leaving the house of Aule and the flowering meads of Valinor, she would come at times and heal the hurts of Melkor, and returning, she would even ever urge the Valar to take to that war with his evil dominion, that they must surely wage ere the coming of the firstborn. And Orome, tamer of beasts, would ride too, at whiles in the darkness of the unlit forests. As a mighty hunter, he came with spear and bow, pursuing to the death of the monsters and fell creatures of the kingdom of Melkor. And his white horse Nahar shone like silver in the shadows. Then the sleeping earth trembled at the beat of his golden hooves, and in the twilight of the world Orome would sound the Velaroma, his great horn, upon the plains of Arda, whereat the mountains echoed, and the shadows of evil fled away, and Melkor himself quailed in Utumno, foreboding the wrath to come. But even as Orome passed, the servants of Melkor would gather again, and the lands were filled with shadows and deceit. So, also, like Ulmo, you have Yavanna, who's like, you know what? I want to go to Middle Earth to kind of heal the hurts that Melkor did to my work, because he really fucked shit up for me, and I don't like that. So she goes. Orome's like, okay, I'm gonna go too because I don't trust all those evil creatures there. And I like a good hunt, so why not? I'm just gonna grab my spear, grab my bow, go on a hunt, and if I find any evil creatures, I'm gonna fuck them up. So yeah. Now all is said concerning the manner of the earth and its rulers in the beginning of days, and ere the world became such as the children of Ilúvatar have known it. For elves and men are the children of Ilúvatar, and since they understood not fully that theme by which the children entered into the music, none of the Ainur dared to add anything to their fashion. For which reason the Valar are to these kindreds rather their elders and their chieftains than their masters. And if ever In their dealings with elves and men, the Ainur have endeavored to force them. Hold on, give me a second. I will try to. Sorry about the delay, y'all. Uh, but yeah, as I was saying, like Ulmo, you have Yavanna, who basically goes to Middle Earth and is like, you know what? I really want to go to Middle Earth to heal the hurts of the world and, to stop Melkor's evil from fucking up my creations. And you have Orome, who's like, Let me grab my spear, my bow, my hounds, my peeps, and we're gonna go to Middle Earth and we're gonna hunt the evil creatures of Melkor because fuck that guy. He's an asshole, and we're going to, you know, not let those creatures freaking live in Middle Earth where the children are going to be because we don't want that, you know, fucking things up for them. So yeah, there's that. Okay, now where was I before I got rudely interrupted? Okay. Okay, and um, I know I was here somewhere. Give me a second, guys. I'm so sorry. Okay. I think I'm just gonna start from the sentence that says, um, for elves and men are the children of Iluvatar, and since they understand not fully that theme, uh, uh, by which the children entered into the music, sorry, none of the Ainur dare to add anything to their fashion. For which reason the Valar are to these kindreds rather their elders and their chieftains than their masters. And if ever in their dealings with elves and men the Ainur have endeavored to force them when they would not be guided, seldom has it turned to good, howsoever good the intents. The dealings of the Ainur have indeed been mostly with the elves, for Iluvatar made them more like in nature to the Ainur, though less in might and stature, whereas to men he gave strange gifts. For it is said that after the departure of the Valar there was silence, and for an age Iluvatar sat alone in thoughts. Then he spoke and said, Behold, I love the earth, which shall be a mansion of the Quendi and the Etani. But the Quendi shall be the fairest of all earthly creatures, and they shall have and shall conceive and bring forth more beauty than all of my children. And they shall have the greater bliss of this world. But to the Etani I will give a new gift. Therefore he willed that the hearts of men should seek beyond the world, and should find no rest therein, but they should have a virtue to shape their life, amid the powers and chances of the world, beyond the music of the Ainur, which is as fate to all things else, and of their operation everything should be, in form and deed, completed and the world fulfilled. Um, and to the last and smallest. But Iluvatar knew that men, being set amid the turmoils of the powers of the world, would stray often, and would not use their gifts in harmony, and he said, These too in their time shall find that all that they do redounds at the end only to the glory of my work. Yet the elves believe that men are often a grief to Manwë, who knows most of the mind of Iluvatar. For it seems to the elves that men resemble Melkor most of all the Ainur, although he has ever feared and hated them, even those that served him. It is one with this gift of freedom that the children of men dwell only a short space in the world alive, and are not bound to it, and depart soon whither the elves know not, whereas the elves remain until the end of days, and their love of the earth and all the world is more single and more poignant therefore. and as the years lengthen, even more sorrowful. For the elves die not till the world dies, unless they are slain or wasted grief, and to both these seeming deaths they are subject. Neither does age subdue their strength, unless one grows weary of 10,000 centuries. And dying they are gathered to the halls of Mandos. Another important key figure, keep his name in mind. In Valinor, whence they may in time return. But the sons of men die indeed, and leave the world, wherefore they are called the guests, or the strangers. Death is their fate, the gift of Iluvatar, which as time wears, even the powers shall envy. But Melkor has cast his shadow upon it, and confounded it with darkness, and brought forth evil out of good, and fear out of hope. Yet of old the Valar declared to the elves in Valinor that men shall join the second music of the Ainur, whereas Iluvatar has not revealed what he purposes for the elves after the world's end, and Melkor has not discovered it. So that is chapter 1 of the Quenta Silmarillion. I want to thank you all for sticking along for the ride of this chapter. I know it was kind of a long read. I do apologize also for the minor pause near the end. I had to help my little sister with something, so I do apologize for that. But as soon as I get a drink of water, I'm going to get right on to recording the second video for the night, so give me about a minute or so. Anyways, I hope you're all doing well. Have a wonderful night. May God bless you. Happy Hanukkah to those who are already celebrating Hanukkah and to those who are going to be celebrating it tomorrow. Happy early Hanukkah. I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. May God bless you. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.